What is going on YouTube? It's your boy Rennie back with another YouTube video. And as you can see from the title of this video is probably, it is going to be a little bit more serious, a little bit more, a little bit more personal than what I normally make. Now granted, I'm a pretty open book and I tend to talk about a lot of personal things or a lot of my opinions with personal things. But today is kind of like something that I have been thinking about making for a while, but I kind of just didn't have I didn't know really how to approach it in a way, I guess. But I kind of just figured, fuck it. Let's just do what I always do. Just talk about my opinion, talk about my experience and stuff like that. Yeah, title of this video is the pressure of being a Hispanic son who doesn't fit the mold. And I'm going to be elaborating on that, what that means, stuff like that. So I want to say this first because it's important. This isn't a video of me bashing my parents or saying Hispanic families are bad. I love my parents. They sacrifice a lot for me. But, I realize that you can love your family and still struggle with the expectations they put on you. And, that doesn't mean that, your family won't be exempt from criticism, I should say. Because these things can exist at the same time. You can love your parents, but at the same time, you can realize that, when they were raising you, they didn't particularly do everything perfect, which is okay. Not everybody's perfect. Parents aren't fucking, or no, there's no perfect people in general. You know what I'm saying? There's no such thing as fucking perfection. And, a lot of these people, in today's world, they're raising kids and they're raising families for the first time. And that's the shit with my parents, what I'm saying? They raised me with what they knew and stuff like that. So, growing up, there was always this picture of what a man was supposed to be in my household, the typical fucking, be tough, don't cry, don't complain, you know what I'm saying? Standard American dream shit, you know what I'm saying? Get married, have kids, go to college, buy a house, all the typical shit, and, including fucking, going to church and reading the Bible. And this is typically what it means to be, I feel like, a Dominican man or a Hispanic man, just, doing what your parents tell you to do, go to school, go to college, get a wife, get kids, get a house, and then that's pretty much it. And, also religion is a part of it as well. The issue with me is that I've never really fit that mold, so I've always been quiet. I've always been emotional, sensitive. I never cared about acting like the toughest guy in the room. I've just always liked different stuff, and I've always been different than what it normally means to be a Hispanic man, I feel like. And I don't know if that's because I grew up here in the United States, or if, just because my environment that I grew up in, whatever. But I've just always liked different shit. I grew up listening to new metal, alternative music, metal in general, rock, EDM, stuff like that. I grew up listening to shit like Linkin Park, Stain, Breaking Benjamin, Slipknot. Seeing how they customize themselves, I guess, and how they dress, with fucking being with tattoos, piercings, and wearing these baggy rock star clothes and shit. That shit always inspired me, and I thought that they were so cool, and I always wanted to look like them. And even just being a kid and stuff like that, I already knew. I was like, yeah, that's the look I want to achieve. And one thing I don't think my parents ever realized, I never really got to figure out who I was growing up. My parents, and especially my mother, she did a lot of stuff for me. So she dressed, she chose my fashion, she chose my haircuts, she chose everything for me and shit. And I always had this idea of what I wanted to do, or what I wanted to how I wanted to look myself and how I wanted to act, whatever. But I kind of feel like my parents kind of always chose things for me. And every time I liked something that didn't fit what I was supposed to like I just kind of kept it to myself, because it's just growing up in a religious household, and I just wanted to do right by my parents. I didn't want to quote unquote disappoint them, whatever's in that. And I don't know, I never really got to experiment or really do what I wanted to do until I became an adult. So a lot of this shit I kept to myself up to a certain point. And if I wanted a certain hairstyle, tattoos, piercings, or whatever the fuck, I kind of just realized I had to do this shit when I was older, because me being a teenager and trying to do all this shit, I already knew damn well. I was like, yeah, no, I was like, this shit is not happening, bro. My parents are gonna fucking yell at me. They're gonna say some crazy shit. So I pushed that side of myself down for years, and people ask me, it's oh, especially the past few years with me, going into my fashion and whatever's in that, it's oh, why are you dressing like this? Why are you painting your nails? Why are you getting piercings? Whatever's in that? And the truth is, I just said, this isn't something that just came up out of nowhere. No, this has been something I've always been this way. This is just me. This has just been me for years. And now that I'm an adult, I just finally have the freedom to show hey, look guys, this is what I am. This is who I am. This is what I've always wanted to look like. This is the energy I've always wanted to show in public and stuff like that. But, I repressed it and I pushed it down for so long, just because, one, like I said, I didn't want to disappoint my parents. I didn't want to, quote unquote, live. I didn't want to like go away from like the vision that they had for me, I guess, whatever. And I was scared of being myself, essentially. But like, now I'm 26 years old. I'm an adult. I have my own job, a really good job at that. I make my own money, and it's like, I thought to myself, I'm like, why am I gonna live for other people? I should be living for myself. I should be living authentically to me. And so that's when I realized, what, I was like, fuck it, like I'm gonna do my own thing now. Like I can finally dress how I've always wanted to do. I can finally get the tattoos I've dreamt about, wear piercings, and it's funny, like I said, because especially with my Hispanic family, like people think I've changed, but honestly, like I haven't changed at all. It's just like I'm just finally becoming the version of myself that I never got the chance to be growing up. And most of the pressure didn't really hit until I became an adult. That's when the comparison started, like, especially like Hispanic parents, and I feel like, like Caribbean parents and just foreign parents in general, like they like comparing you a lot. It's like, like, my like once I started getting older and once I started like being myself and being my authentic self, it's like I started getting shit like, oh, like look at this family member, like he's married, he has kids, like when are you gonna give us grandkids? When are you moving out? Why do you have tattoos? Why do you not go to church anymore? Why do you have so many piercings? Why don't you read the Bible? Like all this shit just came at me at once, and I don't know. I just feel like it was just so overwhelming because I feel like, why do I need to get questioned so much? Like, why does every decision I make need to be defended by me so hard? Why can't I just be accepted for who I am and shit? And it's crazy because it's like I did everything I was supposed to do, as an adult or just as a teenager and as a kid growing up in the United States. Just like, I stayed out of trouble. I went to school. I got my degree. I got a job. I became a responsible adult. And I guess in a sense, like I tried to make my family proud, but it's like every time I checked one box, another one showed up. I just feel like what do people say? Like the goalpost kept being pushed back. Every time I did one thing right, it would just be another expectation or something else. It's just like, I don't know. Like the thing that hurts isn't that they don't like my tattoos or piercings. Like people are allowed to have their own opinions about, how they see shit and how they see stuff in the world, whatever. It's for me, it's like what hurts is feeling like those things stop them from seeing me. Like all the good things about me suddenly don't matter because I don't fit the picture that they had in their heads. Like, and I feel like even if I did live authentic or live quote unquote authentically or like live in the vision that they had for me, just like I still would be judged regardless, like I would have been this fucking church boy and fucking going to church and, having a girlfriend or having kids, what else and that. Like, it's just, I don't know. Like, it's just like, but at the same time, like I said, like in terms of being a son and the way I was raised, like, I feel like I did everything right. I mean, first of all, I did everything my parents wanted me to do. I went to school, I got my degree, I graduated, I was a first generation college student. And I have a job. I stayed out of trouble. I don't do drugs. I don't drink that often. I drink socially now because I'm an adult. But it's just like, just generally speaking, like, and especially the city I grew up in, there was a lot of kids that went the alternate path. They fucking went and did drugs or they got into gangs and, they started killing people or they got killed themselves. You know what I'm saying? And it's just like, I could have easily turned out to be something like that. But instead, no, I didn't. I stayed true to myself. I stayed out the way. I basically tried to be as good of a person as I could be a good kid and stuff like that. And, I did everything right by the book and how they wanted me to do it. But like, now, because I don't fit what the look that my parents want me to have, like all of a sudden, like, they don't really see me as like me, you know what I'm saying? Like I'm still their son, but like, I don't fit the picture that they have in their head. So like, it's a problem. And I don't know. It just, it kind of hurts. I'm not gonna lie. It kind of does hurt, to not be accepted by your parents. But like I said, I'd rather live authentically to me and live for who I am versus living for other people. Because at the end of the day, like, I'd rather live my authentic self than be older and live in regret for not living, the life that I wanted to live and stuff like that. So, but for a long time, I mean, I thought I was a problem. I was like, well, maybe if I was masculine enough, maybe if I dressed differently, acted differently, I'd be accepted. But like, the way I look doesn't define my character. The way I treat people, that's ultimately the thing that matters the most. The way I treat people, the way I act in the world, and that's what I can give praise to my parents for. Is like they gave me a really good moral upbringing, and I learned a lot from them. And because of this, like I stayed out of the way, and I stayed to myself, and like I like I said, I just was trying to be a good kid, and so that's what I essentially ended up doing. And in doing so, like I don't think my parents ever meant to hurt me, And this is what I meant earlier by like forgiving my parents and like, that they raised me based on what they knew, they're products of how they were raised. And I understand like that's where it comes from. But, understanding that doesn't mean that it doesn't hurt, like, so just because I understand like, hey, look, this is how my parents were raised and that's how they raised us. Like, it doesn't mean that I still don't have a right to feel the way that I do or like, like or that I don't, like it doesn't mean that it still won't hurt. Essentially is like what I'm saying. And for the longest time I thought becoming an adult meant like becoming the man everybody wanted to be, but becoming an adult was really just like permitting myself to become the person I'd been hiding all along. Like that's what I feel like that's what it means to be an adult, is like finally looking at who you are on the inside and living to that vision fully. Now, can you live with that vision like your parents had all? Like, of course, yeah, but like at the end of the day, you need to look inside yourself and you have to fucking pick your future. You have to pick what you want because it's your life, I mean, at the end of the day, it sucks, but eventually people are going to start dying, family members, friends, and stuff like that, especially your family members, your parents, your siblings. Like, these people are all going to die one day. And then at the end of the day, what's going to be left is you, so it's just like one day these people won't be here anymore. And it's just like, like, what are you going to do? Like, you have to live for you. You have to make your own decisions. You have to do shit that you want to do for yourself. You know what I'm saying? So, but, if you've ever felt like you don't fit the mold your family had planned for you, just know that I fully get it, because me, being a Dominican man and, diving into this whole look of, piercings, tattoos, jewelry, and like, whatever, all the, not being religious or not wanting to have kids, whatever it's not, like, I'm pretty much like the fucking opposite of what my parents like really, I guess, like, quote unquote, like wanted for me, or like, what they had in store, what they had in mind for me, stuff like that. But at the end of the day, like I said, like I'm living for me, and that's all that matters. That I did everything. I did everything these people wanted me to do. I fucking stayed out the way. I stayed out of trouble. I went to fucking school and all this other shit. And okay, cool. So I don't look how they wanted me to look. But at the end of the day, like, you don't have to like how I dress or how I look, whatever. Like, all that matters is that, like I said, I'm staying out the way. I'm a good human being, and I'm doing what I need to do, which is go to work and fucking just be a good member of society. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know. I kind of just wanted to rant about what it's like being a Hispanic son and being like the opposite end of the spectrum, like in terms of like what's normally accepted or what's normally expected at being a Caribbean son, or it's weird. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's definitely an odd feeling. Like I said, I mean, this video is definitely like a little bit more personal, but I kind of just feel like, I wanted to talk about it. Maybe this video will resonate with some people that are, even if you're not Caribbean, maybe if you just have foreign parents in general, maybe this is just the expectation. But I mean, if there's one thing that I have to say is, like I've been kind of saying this whole video, is just like, you have to live authentically for yourself. You know what I'm saying? Like, you cannot be living for other people. You cannot be, trying to fucking, sorry, I got a text message, but you cannot be living for other people. You cannot be trying to fucking live with this fucking expectation and shit, like, that you have to look a certain way or what isn't that. Like, no, bruh. Do you do you be yourself authentically? Fucking, I heard this saying once, but it's just like, hey man, you raise that flag and you raise it up high and you live the life that you want and you authentically be yourself. You know what I'm saying? And that's what it means. And that's what I think everybody should fucking do for themselves and stuff like that. So so that's pretty much it. This video is kind of just like a little personal rant about like being Hispanic and stuff like that, and like, just what it was like growing up and being somebody that I wasn't, and finally discovering who I was, and kind of just like, I guess like the quote unquote consequences of it, I guess. Like, I don't know. For me, all of this shit was just more annoying. It's just fucking annoying and fucking stupid. But at the end of the day, like, my parents still love me. I just am this kind of like oddball and this kind of like black sheep of the family, which is crazy because, I mean, like I said, at the end of the day, like, I've done everything that they wanted me to. I just do my own thing now, like, I just fucking, I dress how I want, I look how I want, and that's it. And if they have a problem with it, so be it. But at the end of the day, they still know me for me, and I just, yeah, that's pretty much it. So yeah, guys, appreciate you guys hearing me rant about this shit. If you can relate to this somewhat, definitely let me know in the comments, because I love reading you guys' comments. I love talking to you guys, stuff like that. So that's pretty much it. This video is a little bit different. I was kind of reading off of a script, if you couldn't tell, kind of just like reading off a script and kind of giving my own ideas as I went on. If you guys have any criticisms or anything I can improve upon, please let me know. I'm always open to, constructive criticism with stuff like this. But yeah, guys, let me know what you guys think of this video. And like I said, if you guys relate to it, definitely comment. Like, comment, subscribe, and you guys will be seeing more videos from me soon. So hope you guys have a good day, man. Peace.